Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. As some of you may know, I was president of the Mississauga Arts Council and spent a fair amount of time thinking about fashion and was fashion an art, and came to the conclusion that fashion was not only an art, but it was an industry, a creative industry that was critically important to Mississauga. So I wanted to reach out to Ashlee Froese, who is a lawyer with her own company, Froese. Froese Lawyers, I guess it's called. Froese Law, it's called. And she's also chairman of the City of Toronto Fashion Industry Advisory Board. So she's very involved in lots of different things associated with the legal implications of fashion in regards to trademark and patents and fashion and intellectual property, etc. But also she loves fashion. And then also I want to introduce you to Mr. Ruxley. Is it Joseph Ruxley? James Ruxley, I apologize. James Ruxley, who runs a design house in fashion that's converted to PP&E through COVID-19. So two very topical conversations. Ashlee, how are you? Welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me. It's great. It's great to be here. Happy Tuesday or whatever day it is with COVID. I lose track.
So tell me, why did you decide, busy lawyer, to become chairman of the City of Toronto Fashion Industry Advisory Committee?
It was something that I was invited to join, actually, and invited to chair. And it's just part of my sort of whole thesis of you got to give back. You got to do more than just be a lawyer. And so this is my fourth go around of being chair of some kind of organization that is giving back to the fashion industry. And I've been a mentor with other incubators for 6 years, 8 years, 10 years. So for me, it's just very intuitive that if there's an opportunity where I can do more than less, have at it, let's do it, and let's be results oriented and try to make waves.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your contribution. And James, it's Yurichuk, is that correct?
You got it.
I apologize that I got your name wrong, first of all. And tell me about what your company was and what it's been doing lately.
Yeah, so the company Wuxley, we were born in 2015, and we're a Canadian-made outerwear brand, and our premise is live warm. So live warm when you wear our gear, but live warm in your everyday life. And how we do that is through we try to do that through example, the way we run our business. We make everything here in Canada. It's all sustainably made using biodegradable and recyclable materials. And then it's also living warm with our community, and we're hoping that people through all this expression live warm in their everyday lives as well. So that's our movement here, and so we've been going at it for about 5 years. And so when there was a call from government in March 2020, earlier this year, that they need support with the PP&E effort, we of course put our hands out, because just like almost every entrepreneur in the country, we wanted to help in some kind of way.
Excellent. Well, thank you for doing that. What we're going to do is going to take a break for some messages and come back more with Ashlee and James and hear more about what's happening in the fashion industry and what James is doing in regards to outerwear and PPE. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We're talking about fashion, fashion in Toronto, and fashion challenges in the fashion industry, and one company that's sort of dealt with some of the COVID-19 challenges by really expanding into PPE. We're joined by Ashlee Froese, who is lawyer with Froese Law. It's her own law firm. And she specializes in intellectual property, patents, trademarks, et cetera, and intellectual property associated with, I guess, lots of different companies, but specifically the fashion business. But also, very importantly, she is chair of the City of Toronto's Fashion Industry Advisory Panel. And we're also joined by James Yurichuk, who is the CEO of Woolly Outerwear. And it sounds like it's got some interesting stuff. I want to check it out. Outerwear that is biodegradable and recyclable. And you've just opened up a pop-up store on Queen West, I understand?
Yeah, it's been pretty busy here lately. Even when I get home, I got the babies in the background, but it's not stopping us at all. We've been busy helping out the government with some PP&E. Specifically isolation gowns. And at the start of October, we launched our pop-up on Queen Street West. And so we welcome anyone to come visit us to check out our environmentally friendly outerwear.
And so tell us a little bit about this environmentally friendly outerwear. It is what, jackets, coats?
Yeah, so it's some of the world's most technical coats, and you know, who makes jackets the best in the world? It's us here in Canada, and so of course we got to have all this stuff made here in Canada, and so you know, we have a great tradition of making parkas here in Canada, but we took in a more progressive approach and put a lot of science, technology, and research behind the materials we select, and it keeps people warm while being friendly with the environment, keeping it animal friendly, and you know, these are some of the values that we've had as a brand, and this is why people seem to like us.
And you say it's using recycled products. What type of products are you using to recycle?
So for instance, we utilize recycled plastic bottles that would otherwise end up in the ocean. We have those collected, and it's made for our lining, and our insulation. We've turned towards the Sorona insulation, and actually biodegrades. Thankfully, not when you're wearing it, but when it ends up in a landfill or in a water setting after a couple years, it's, you know, disintegrate. That's what the scientists tell me.
But if it sits in my closet over the course of the summer, it's not going to biodegrade by the time of the winter comes back.
Yeah, just keep the moths away and you'll be okay.
Okay. And is this high fashion, low fashion, grunge fashion? Tell me a little bit about.
Yeah, no. So we're you know, I'd say we're in the mid to higher fashions, but we really want to start expressing ourselves more. And so, you know, we built a bunch of our infrastructure over our last 5 years, and you know, we've grown from a team of 1-2 people for about 30 now. And so we got some really cool stuff coming out. It's a brand to watch, not just because I'm the owner, but there's a lot of great stuff that's coming out. It's a brand that we want you to be proud as a Canadian that we're making this stuff in Canada.
Do you have one of the your coats or jackets hanging around the house there you can show us?
Yeah, I can walk you over to the closet. This whole boatload of coats here.
So. A boatload of coats. Which one do I want?
Well, this guy right here is our midweight jacket. It's called the Lion Midweight, and it's a nice little lightweight to get you around town, get you to the hockey arenas, get you in and out of Costco's real quick. We have this guy right here. This is called our Bay Street Parka. This is when people used to actually go to Bay Street to work, and this made headways last year, New Year's, when Bryan Adams wore it at the New Year's countdown on CBC from when he's performing in Niagara Falls. So that was
the Bay Street Parka I can get on the Queen Street West pop-up store?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, put aside a 42 regular for me. You okay?
Okay, I'll have to convert it from the European sizes, but I think we have that.
Okay, sounds good. Ashlee, you know, fashion's got to be really in challenge by COVID-19. A lot of the people that you deal with in your advisory board, what are they doing? Are they doing like James and coming up with PP&E solutions, or opening up pop-ups, or, you know, like, it's got to be incredibly challenging out there.
It's interesting. So I have a slew of clients, and I really do focus on the fashion industry. I've got about 350 clients or so. And there are some that are certainly having challenges, some that are pivoting over to e-commerce, and they're doing okay. The thing that I think that's really beautiful about what the Canadian fashion and the Toronto fashion industry has done is, remember back in the pandemic days, early days, when we were disinfecting our groceries and there was trade wars about PPE, and there were shipments coming from China, and then they were embargoed before they could leave. And remember, there was a real concern of, can Canada supply the PPE that we need for our healthcare professionals and also for ourselves? Like the early days, sort of March and April. The beautiful thing that I found about the Toronto fashion industry, and everyone was scared to leave their house, and it was when we were in the initial panic, the hell is going on, and the news cycle was going all the time, and Italy was shut down, like those early days. The Toronto fashion industry, the apparel manufacturing industry in Toronto, they were like, you know what? We can do something about this. We're going to roll up our sleeves. We're going to go to the office when no one else was there. They're going to go to the manufacturing plants. They're going to start to figure out how are they going to buy surplus amounts of elastic bands to go here, to buy the thread that you need? Are they complying? And they really rolled up their sleeves and they said, we can do something to help the population. And they did. And so it was a very stressful time. And there's a lot of anxiety about the products that they're creating, et cetera. And they just rolled up their sleeves and they went to work the next day when everyone else was literally stockpiling toilet paper. They were figuring out, how can we change our business from outerwear, from underwear, from t-shirts, to helping to be a part of the solution to quite literally keep the population safe. So, I've always been an advocate for the fashion industry, but I found something to be very beautiful and inspiring about how they've really rolled up their sleeves to help.
Well, I think that's excellent. And there have been numerous examples of companies, probably like James's company, that have been able to pivot and do that. I spoke with Irwin Toy, that saw their toy business diminish from a retail standpoint fairly dramatically. And they started producing masks that they were distributing. So I think people have done that. That said, I just, I went to Queen West, and two of my favorite stores to shop in were shuttered. And so there's got to be a lot of Main Street retail and in mall retail. And, all the different companies that have declared bankruptcy or put themselves up for sale and shuttered stores. What are these companies doing to survive through these last 7 months of COVID-19?
So for sure, brick and mortar is having challenges. Absolutely. I think that what we're trying to do through the Fashion Industry Advisory Panel in conjunction with City of Toronto is to start this campaign at Support Toronto Fashion, which is to really highlight all of these amazing Toronto designers and the whole fashion ecosystem. It's not just designers, it's the manufacturers, the retailers, et cetera. And a lot of them are starting to pivot to e-commerce. So as we're starting to, I think that there's been a shift in consciousness of consumers of where are they going to put their money now? Are they going to continue to pad the backs of, or pad the pockets of Amazon, for example, or are they going to start to support local? And so there are opportunities to obviously buy brick and mortar, because there are some that are really trying to stick with it and keep the brick and mortar, but there's also a lot of opportunity online as well. And so what we're trying to do is really raise the consciousness of, if you're going to purchase local, purchase domestic, and really support Made in Canada, product of Canada, and our Toronto local community as well.
How do you find these local companies? Are you doing anything to, create a online marketplace of local designers or local fashion houses?
So there's a lot of organizations out there. And what we've been trying to do through the Fashion Industry Advisory Panel is to really celebrate all of the different players. So there's Toronto Fashion Week, there's Fashion Art Toronto, there's Canadian Arts and Fashion Awards, there's Toronto Fashion Incubator, Ryerson Fashion Zone. They're all hubs for all of these local designers. And then in addition to that, we're starting to profile all of Toronto-based designers and apparel manufacturers, et cetera, the whole ecosystem, to enable to educate consumers. So quite literally, from underwear to outerwear, from Knix, for example, it's based in Toronto, to Wuxley, which is, outerwear, that's also based in Toronto. We've got you covered for any part of what you're wearing.
James, what about you? Wuxley, did you have bricks and mortar stores, or were you distributed through department stores, or what? And how did that change when COVID-19 came upon us?
So, in the early stage, so we're a high-end product. So, for instance, we have parkas that retail for $800 all the way to $1,300. And so it's kind of a tougher sell online initially, unless people have a familiarity to your product. And so it's always kind of been important to have a brick and mortar presence for us, or at least be accessible. So we've been running pop-ups during the winter season last year and then again this year. But a way that we really reached our consumers in the past, so I don't think we'll be able to do that ever in the near future, was we placed ourselves at a lot of consumer shows. It took a lot of hustle and grit to get out to all these shows, but it got us in front of the people, and it got us to events where people wanted to spend money, and that really kept our company going in the early stages. And we'll have to walk away from that revenue stream in the business, but we can look at it as an opportunity to focus in and hone in. Online is the most scalable avenue of business, but it's also very competitive at the same time. So,
so how does a small company like yours, Ashlee was talking about going online, and I completely agree with her, but how does a small company like yours sort of get above the noise, get away from the Amazons and the other, big places that people go online and get people to click on your website? How do you do that?
Yeah, well, I think you got to have some differentiators about you, something that separates you, whether it's through fashion, your ideologies, or just the way that you express your art. That's one way. But I think good old fashioned service, and whether people are looking at us in the eye at the store or setting up virtual appointments, just like the Zoom meeting, and finding a right jacket, that's something that we can do as a company, just because we have that kind of margin built into our jackets, where we can service them in an elevated way.
Having someone notable like a Bryan Adams wear your Bay Street Parka for New Year's Eve has got to be unbelievably helpful. How did you exploit that?
We just we put it through our social media channels, and we let a lot of important stakeholders that do the buying for some of the stores. We of course notify them, and just try to amplify the hit as much as we can once it comes in.
We're chatting tonight with Ashlee Froese and James Yurchuk about the fashion industry in Toronto and how it's been impacted by COVID-19. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back more with Ashlee. I'm going to ask her about fashion shows, and I want to find out more about these pop-up stores from James. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. We're chatting tonight about fashion industry in Toronto with Ashlee Froese, who runs her own law firm, Froese Law, and specializes in intellectual property and fashion and other industries that have got patents and intellectual property issues. And James Yurchuk, who is the CEO of Woolly Outwear. Is that where?
Wuxley.
I apologize. Wuxley Outwear. And he's got this really cool Bay Street parka that I'm going to go down to their Queen Street West pop-up store and check out, because it sounds sounds like kind of fun. Ashlee, if James comes up with a Bay Street parka idea, can he patent that? Can he trademark that? What's the intellectual property issues around something like that?
Oh gosh, how much time do you have? So there's not putting on my lawyer's hat, the answer is always, it depends. It depends on what it is, how distinctive it is, and then how do you manipulate the intellectual property regime to fit into the distinctive components of the actual product.
So number one, he's got an interesting name, Bay Street Parka. And number two, he described it as a really cool parka. So maybe there's and it's biodegradable and made out of renewable products. So are those patentable?
It's, and I don't work for Wuxley, so I'm not going to comment on their IP. But I would say that if, for example, they've manufactured a new type of fabric that might be biodegradable, or it might be, I don't know, weatherproof or what have you, it's possible that the manufacturing processes for that fabric might be patent protected. If, for example, it's a highly stylized jacket that has certain kinds of stitchings that become very distinctive, it could fall under non-traditional trademark protection, possibly also industrial design. If he's creating sketchbooks and a tech pack to send to the manufacturers, that tech pack and the description of how all pieces are slotting together, the ultimate end product, that might be protected under copyright protection. If, for example, he's, Wuxley is going to be his main trademark, his umbrella brand. And then if, for example, he's coming up with the Who's Your Daddy parka, let's say, then that might be a sub-brand under it. So really, the whole point of dealing with a lawyer that understands the fashion industry is that what you want to do is manipulate the intellectual property regimes so that you can protect the different aspects and secure your protection in a more robust way.
Fascinating. We always hear about songwriters that are trying to protect their intellectual property and how challenging it is. Actually, I never even thought that a fashion designer could protect their designs. And I guess what you're saying is if it's unique, they can.
Yeah, it depends on what type of IP and what the threshold is. But if you think about it, every consumer-based business, any B2C business, one of their biggest assets is their brand. And when you're dealing in the creative industries, much like song or poetry or sculpture, the creativity, the fashion design is their commodity. That's what they're trading in. And so intellectual properties is a regime of laws that rewards creativity in the different permutations of it, depending on the type of law, so that they can get exclusivity over it and commodify that exclusivity.
James, have you protected your designs in any of these fashions?
Not the design specifically, but we have a couple trademark. Actually, just got trademarked for Wuxley as of yesterday. It came in, and I got the Canadian trademark. So I'm so proud about that. And we have a couple other pending trademarks out there.
What about this line that Ashley's talking about who's your daddy parka? What's that line about?
Yeah, maybe we can erase that from the tape and I can get it out there and claim that it was mine first once we reveal that.
So Ashlee, this association, this council, this task force, whatever you want to call it, this fashion advisory board, how did it come about and what's its objective?
So it really came about, IMG used to own Toronto Fashion Week, which is a global, they produce Milan Fashion Week, New York Fashion Week, etc. They sold Toronto Fashion Week. And really it was the industry coming together about 3 years ago. And there was about 50 or 60 players of, okay, what is the status of the fashion industry? How do we need to change it? What are the issues that we need to address? And it was a lot of stakeholder input into this is what we need. This is what we all need to come together. So we worked with the City of Toronto to really have a pan-industry perspective. So education, apparel, manufacturing, retail, fashion shows, designers, et cetera, come to the table, and all of those cogs in the wheel of this industry ecosystem has a voice that we can start to architect responses to the issues that the industry as a whole is coming up with or facing so that we can try to address it. So one of the biggest issues that we saw was that we need consumers to be aware that we have this robust industry and we need them to participate. We need them to be more conscientious in their consumer choices.
Do you need a big fashion week, a fashion show?
Pardon me?
Do you need a big fashion week or a big fashion show? Does Toronto, now that we don't have a Toronto Fashion Week or Toronto Fashion Show, are we lacking?
So that was then, and then it was bought, and there was a new iteration that was bought out by, as a collaboration between Freed and Hazelton Hotel and First Capital. And so it did come back again, and it's been it went on for a couple of years in Yorkville, and obviously it's not happening right now because of COVID. I think that it does help. I think it depends on how you architect it, because it's a great opportunity for designers to get in front of media, editors, suppliers, buyers, the whole sort of taking the products from design all the way through to how do we get them to the shelves in the stores.
James, I put a suit on last week for the first time in 5 months. People.
Did it fit still?
Thankfully it did. Thanks for asking. My gosh, it's got to be challenging for men's tailors and fashion designers, and particularly females that. Designers for female clothing for, fancy events. Maybe you're missing it because you're focused on outerwear, but this has got to be challenging for people as people just aren't going out that much anymore.
Yeah, I guess it varies from category to category, but, certainly comfort clothing is going up and, evening ballroom wear, not so much. So, hopefully we come out unscathed with outerwear. People are getting outside more, and so it's a good opportunity to get a nice Canadian-made jacket with us being forced to social distance outside and see people outside more often this winter.
What do you think about the question I asked Ashlee? Does a fashion show or a fashion week help you market your product?
Yeah, I think it's a good opportunity to make a spectacle, but it's not the necessary ingredient. A lot of Europe is rethinking the way they do fashion shows and the way that we do fashion, because even before this crisis hit, there was a huge over inventory around the world of just products, and this kind of might be a good opportunity to reset and see how we display fashion, find new creative ways. And not to say that we'll never do fashion shows because they're great, but there's other ways to express ourselves as well.
Where's your stuff manufactured?
I'd say about 75% of it's made right here in Toronto, Scarborough, North York. And then we have productions underway in Winnipeg and as well as Montreal right now.
Actually, lots of people have commented about how global supply chains have broken down and have been impacted by COVID-19. And, clearly the controversy has been mostly on PPE and other things that President Donald Trump in the United States actually stopped from coming across the border. But lots of people have talked about how we've got to sort of reshore, nationalize, et cetera, different products. Do you think the fashion business will manufacture more products in Canada or less products in Canada in the future?
A greater consciousness. I do. I feel that Canadians really want to give back and support those that are manufacturing here. I think that there's going to be a bigger push for made in Toronto, sort of product of Canada, made in Canada, all of that kind of stuff. I think that it matters. And I think that especially with what's happening down in the South, I think the Canadian sense of pride is elevating. And I think that the kerfuffle that happened in the beginning days of pivoting with COVID and seeing how our industry stepped up and actually having it shown that it matters, being able to access domestic manufacturing, it's really handy when push comes to shove.
Let me ask you the same question I asked James in regards to ladies wear and going out wear or business wear. I follow you on Facebook and you're always dressed incredibly fashionably. But a lot of people are just staying at home and wearing more comfortable clothing. What's going to happen? Is this going to devastate a bunch of, ladies wear designers and manufacturers and fashion houses?
It has the potential to. I mean, let's face it, if you want to stay ahead right now, you're going to, as a business owner, you're going to have to pivot in some way. And so there are luxury designers that are pivoting to outerwear or pivoting to PPE, but $30 a mask is not going to cut it. And they're starting to do athleisure and comfort, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that this is not going to be the status quo for the rest of our lives, I'm hoping. So I think that it's just sort of making a conscious effort for those that are naturally struggling right now to really try and help them along this way. For example, the holiday season is coming up. Giving a gift card to those businesses would really go a long way, for example.
To a fashion designer or to a bricks and mortar
right.
clothing store? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, exactly.
I've also been invited to a couple of these virtual galas where you get dressed up and you attend a gala via Zoom. Does that make any sense?
I think it does. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. In the beginning days of COVID, a couple of my girlfriends, we all got dressed up on theme nights on Friday night, and we had quite a few cocktails, and we'd be wearing our Canadian designers, and it's still that sense of normalcy in a way. So, for those that are into it, or for those that just want to do something different and want to feel like life is somewhat normal and they like getting dressed up, yeah, I think it's cute. I think it's nice.
James, I saw a funny thing on social media about how we were going to be celebrating Christmas in Canada during COVID-19. And there was a bunch of us dressed up as snowmen sitting around a outdoor picnic table. But frankly, we might be doing that with all of the comments that it's far safer to be outside. We are going to be probably socializing more outside this year. You think about all the different restaurants that have put up tents and bought heaters and things like that. That's got to be a great opportunity for you to sell outerwear.
Yeah, hopefully there's good response on that. But yeah, if you're looking to get a outside heater, good luck with that. They're sold out wherever I'm going, and so I just ordered my outdoor hockey rink, and so hopefully we'll have a good place to hang out and stay warm this winter.
We're chatting with James Urachuk of Wuxley, right?
You got it.
Wuxley, an outerwear manufacturer, designer here in Toronto, and Ashlee Froese of Froese Law Firm about fashion and challenges the fashion industry has faced during COVID-19. We're going to take a break and come back with some concluding comments in just a minute. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour in Saga. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour, Saga 960. We're chatting about fashion tonight. We've got Ashlee Froese, a lawyer with Froese Law Firm. She specializes in intellectual property, particularly in regards to the fashion industry, but also in regards to other industries that intellectual property is an issue at. And James Urachuk of Wuxley, which is an outerwear fashion company. And sounds like he's got some interesting jackets and parkas available at a pop-up store on Queen West that I want to go check out. Ashlee, I probably should ask you, are you wearing a Canadian designer tonight?
You know, it's funny, every single day I wear something Canadian. And if I go out of the house and I'm not wearing Canadian, I literally will turn around and go back in and make sure I'm wearing something Canadian. So I'm wearing Biko earrings and Kat Yaniga bracelet.
Excellent. Congratulations. Well, thank you for that. Tell us a little bit about your organization and what it's trying to do. And you mentioned something about a social media campaign.
Yeah, so with the City of Toronto Fashion Industry Advisory Panel, we actually launched a social media campaign that really is trying to become a hub for people that want to get educated on who's doing what in the fashion industry, the diversity issues, who's manufacturing, what's the education, to really get a bigger lay of the land of who are the players involved. And so you can go to @SupportTorontoFashion and you can check that out. And it's something that's been going on for about 6 weeks. We kicked it off with the Mayor of Toronto doing his own speech and in promoting this social media campaign. So we're really happy to get that sort of stamp of authority from the mayor, who was wearing a mask that was manufactured by a Toronto-based designer, and to really sort of say, hey, the Toronto fashion industry is here. Educate yourself. We have a lot of history. It's quite a robust ecosystem. And here's some information for you.
Excellent. And James, you were saying that you had accessed a bunch of programs through Ryerson or the DMZ. Tell us about some of the programs you've been able to access.
Yeah, so I think there's a great ecosystem of fashion programs available. The ones that helped me have been the Fashion Zone at Ryerson University, and they now have the Creative Innovation Zone, and they do a great job, and it's helped build my startup team. And you know, I've met with Ashlee for some advisory work there as well, and so it really puts you in a great ecosystem and launch pad to help your business grow.
So if you were advising some people that were, fledgling fashion designers, companies, manufacturers, et cetera, where should they go?
So there's a couple of great, robust organizations. First thing, you can always contact me. I do free webinars and newsletters on updates on the law. But there's a couple of incubators that are absolutely fantastic that are dedicated towards the fashion industry. So the Toronto Fashion Incubator, which actually is the first of its kind in the world, and it's been around for 50 plus years. There's also, like James was saying, the Ryerson Fashion Zone, which is also very robust, well-established, and very effective incubator as well. So there's a lot of tools and resources out there that can help you sort of guide you on this route.
Excellent. And James, what about you? Any suggestions other than the ones you mentioned?
Yeah, they're all great. I think great tools, and if you have the bandwidth, it does not hurt to reach out to all of them at some point along your journey, because each of them will have different value adds that they can add to your business.
Well, thank you both for joining me tonight. James, if people want to buy some of your coats or check you out, do you have a website?
Yeah, come visit us at wuxley.com. That's WUXLY.com. We got online appointments, or come visit us at the pop-up shop on Queen West, 884.
884 Queen West. And Ashlee, if people want to either get your newsletter or access your legal services or join the Fashion Advisory Board, what website can they find?
So you can reach out to me at Froese Law, FROESE law.com.
Okay. And what about the Fashion Advisory Board? Do they have a separate website?
Not sure if they do at this point, but you can follow us on Instagram at Support Toronto Fashion.
At Support Toronto Fashion. Excellent. Well, James, you're Chuck of Wuxley, and Ashlee Froese of Froese Law Firm. Thank you so much for joining me tonight on the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. Maybe I could close by saying, it's interesting. I was president of Mississauga Arts Council and on the Arts Council board for 7 years. And we had this big discussion at one point in time that went on and on and on about whether fashion was art. And we defined ourselves as being the center for the creative industries. And there was just no question that fashion was one of those creative industries that was employing people and growing and of interest to people in Mississauga. And so I think when you think of local manufacturing, local industries, and local creative industries and local creation, the fashion business is one of those businesses that we've got to think about, both from a creative standpoint as well as a job standpoint, as well as a profit-making enterprise standpoint. And so I encourage everyone to think about what Ashlee talked about, which is buy local, buy Canadian. And maybe we should all follow Ashlee's rules. If we go out and we're not wearing Canadian designer, we go back inside and put back on something that was designed and manufactured by a Canadian. So thank you, Ashlee and James, very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
That's our show for tonight. Join us every Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock on 960 AM or streamed online at www.saga960am.ca, or you can find all my podcasts or videocasts after the fact on my website, briancrombie.com. Good night, everybody.